Welcome back to a bit of Raw Talk. Today I'm going to be previewing and predicting the fight night between Henry Cejudo and TJ Dillashaw for the Flyweight Championship. Decent card, first card of the ESPN era. You have a lot of good fights there, and they're all spread out in the prelims and the main card. Now, I'm only going to be talking about two fights in depth of this whole card because I'm mostly interested in those two fights, and that's the Alexander Hernandez versus Cowboy Cerrone fight, and of course the main event between Cejudo and TJ. You also have some good fights between Gillespie and Yancy Medeiros. Uh, Benavidez is on the fight. He's on the fight card. And you have Paige Van Zandt also making a comeback. But let's start with Alexander Hernandez versus Cowboy Cerrone. To me, this is a very compelling fight, and it feels like deja vu because it's again Cowboy Cerrone fighting a young, up-and-coming, um, very talented guy in Hernandez. Now, Cowboy finished 2018 very strong by submitting Mike Perry and overcoming all that controversy that happened in his camp. Of course, he was ditched by his camp so that they could train Perry for that fight. He's back at 155 now, and I really hope that he can make the weight, and do it in a healthy way. He's been working on it hard and smart. I got that insight when he was talking to Joe Rogan a few months ago. He was saying how he's really thought about it, and he thinks this is the right move to go back to 155. So if you can do it in a good, smart way, I'm all for it. Hernandez is also coming off a great year in 2018. He showed that he can be exciting by knocking guys out in the first round, but he can also grind out results. He's very good wrestler, and he can take you down constantly, smother you with his strength and power, and really dominate you, and that always pleases the judges. However, for as good as Hernandez has been, and I do rate him, I do think that in the next year or so he will be a top contender at lightweight. I do think that Cowboy's a huge step up in competition for him, and I think it's a little bit too early. I think if Hernandez fought maybe someone just outside of the top 15, or maybe someone between 15 and 10, that would have been a good fight. Of course, Cerrone is not ranked in lightweight, so it makes sense for him to fight Cowboy because he's a big name. And it makes sense for Cowboy to take this fight because he can climb up to the rankings up to like 10 or 11. So, but again, I just think we've seen this before. We've seen Cowboy fight young, hungry guys, and we've seen how it ends. He's too experienced. He's too versatile for them. And like I said, Hernandez is a great wrestler, but that's what he's elite at. Whereas Cowboy is very well rounded. He's good at wrestling. Maybe not as good as Hernandez, but he can definitely hold his own in that department. And his striking is elite level. And when you do take him down, he's a handful with all those submissions that he has. He's very experienced as well. I am struggling to predict the way this fight would end. I could see it ending in a decision for Cowboy, but I can also see it in a TKO for Cowboy. But I do believe that Cowboy will win this one. So I'm just going to stick my neck on the line and say Cowboy wins via TKO. Up next, we got the main event between Cejudo and Dillashaw. This is a big fight because you feel like this is the fate of the 125 division. If Cejudo loses, then that division no longer exists, which is a bit of a shame. TJ is probably one of my favorite fighters to watch. Now, I like fighters who are well-rounded and they are good at almost everything. Um, and in my opinion, he's top three along with Jones and Woodley in terms of their overall skill set. When you combine all of their skills and look at them in how elite they're at wrestling, striking, jiu-jitsu, TJ for me is top three most well-rounded fighters in the UFC. I think the way he mixes his boxing, his Muay Thai, and wrestling is probably the best in the UFC. And you can see how well he's respected by his peers. You know, he has a lot of haters. He doesn't. The fans don't really like him, but you can see that the peers of MMA, the fellow fighters, respect TJ because they know how good he is. I am worried that this fight might not even happen because he has to cut so much weight. You know, when he goes to 135, he's shredded. So I don't know what he will look like at 125. I'm a bit worried about that. And even if he does make weight, I do think that his chin and strength will be majorly affected by that cut in a bad way. And then you have Cejudo, who is extremely strong for a 125er. His wrestling is an elite level, probably easily top 10 wrestlers in the UFC. And it's not just his ability of wrestling, but it's also the wrestling mindset that he has. You know, wrestlers are known for their mental toughness and how they just want to smother and overpower their opponents. And they never give up, no matter what the circumstances. So, and the way he fights is very similar to the likes of Kamaru Usman and Khabib, which is by smothering their opponents with aggressive wrestling. And you can see that sort of being the trend in the last year or two at UFC. There's a lot of, that's sort of the way to go. They're the sort of the toughest guys to beat. I will say that if this fight was at 135, I would pick TJ all day long because I believe that he's the best 135er of all time. However, the drastic weight cut, I think it will affect him because he's also fighting a guy whose style will not, his style will expose TJ's weight cut, the detriment of the weight cut. And I do believe that Cejudo gets it done via decision. I think at the start it will be Cejudo should be careful because TJ, his striking is incredible, but as the fight goes on, I just think Cejudo will just overpower him. And if you look at the photos between the two, Cejudo looks phenomenal. He looks like a superhero, and TJ just, I don't know. He says everything is fine, and I do believe everything is fine, but I don't know. I just think the cut is going to be too much for him. Anyway, appreciate you watching. Like the video if you like it. Subscribe, comment, and I'll see you in the next one.